Hi everyone. Good to be here and good afternoon, everyone.
Hi.
Thanks for joining in today. Um, so I'll dive right in. I think pandemic has brought a lot of changes, right? I think as a society also we've changed and there are a lot of shifts that have happened, right? And one thing that has happened is that digital marketing has changed. At the same time, digital marketing has suddenly, has got which is long due, has got the most important seat on the marketing table now, right? So that is another change that has happened. So while for a consumer brand there have been a lot of shifts, and we would, digital payments have changed. Ashish can obviously tell us a lot more about it. But I'm really curious to see what has changed for a corporate brand, and I'm coming to you, Michelle. You can tell us what has changed for a corporate brand, what shift digital has brought.
So thank you so much and welcome all. We have a small panel since two people have backed out. But so I have a good news and a bad news to share. So I would start obviously with the good news. The digital universe is forever changing, right? It's dynamic and it's changing every now and then. And the bad news is that the good news is that the digital universe is changing, right? So it opens up an ocean of opportunities for us, right? We can be the early adopters that are favored by the algorithms. I have a little tweak in the topic post-pandemic and right now, right? Pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. I firmly believe that the digital space has changed so much over the time that what we used to do before, our strategy, our approach, and everything that we did before may not be valid right now. Though COVID has done a little COVID cleaning for us, and we managed to, get rid of resource draining, non-value added processes. But we are here for the long game, right? So you want to be, when you're planning your brand promotions and when you're planning something for your brand, you want to plan what you are going to be seen 10 years from now, and not jump onto a brand wagon that is trending. So I think that there's nothing pre and post. It was forever changing. But there were certain things that spiked up during the pandemic, and everyone would agree to that, right? Habit change in our country is not that easy. We're still teaching people how to wear masks and wear helmets while we move out of the house. So there were certain things during the pandemic phase that took a spike, but Indian behaviors are not going to change. So the smarter move for marketers, I believe, is to latch on to the existing behaviors. There were certain things that took a trend, right? Online shopping was there from the very beginning. But during this phase, we saw a spike in online shopping, and we saw people, and now if brands don't have their D2C platforms and are not there in the market space, I'm sure you're not going to survive, right? So there are trends that we saw, which were any which ways habits that were there even pre-COVID, right? So a smarter thing for marketeers is to latch on to the existing trends that are there, which will then help us sail through a longer time frame, not ride on to current trends or something that is very sporadic and just there for a short time to stay.
So I would agree to that digital ecosystem was actually changing. It's just that the pandemic has accelerated it, I would say.
Yep.
Right. So the pace of change was very small. Now it has accelerated, and there is a major shift now, right? So pre and post, if you see, the habits have changed. So when let's say any digital marketer thinks about doing digital marketing, right? How do you actually approach it, right? You first think about who are your target customers, right? And what kind of digital platforms you would find them on, right? So the kind of consumption which is happening now has changed. That the kind of platforms which are being used now has changed, right? So I think the video viewing was not that high earlier, which is now very high, right? And the kind of platform which are being used. So I was seeing some data for US also, the share of online shopping in the overall GDP of the country. The movement, I think it was something around 7 to 8% in last 20 years. And the similar kind of shift it has seen in a couple of months, right? So that is the kind of behavioral changes I would say we have seen. And now even post pandemic, that number won't settle down to the earlier one. there will be a shift from the earlier one. It will settle somewhere in between. Yeah.
I think just to
sorry, go ahead.
Just wanted to add, I think, to what Mitchell and Ashish said. One was that we are all seeing that this is a secular trend, which is happening. And I come from those days, when I used to be at Bombay Shaving Company, running this consumer product brand, to now running an e-commerce enablement company. The world has changed to, when we used to interact with some of these global giants in 2018-19, what digital as a budget we used to get is that what is remaining or what is parked outside of offline is now left over for digital. So now what has changed is that first it has become a digital first budget, right? So that's been the tectonic shift in terms of thinking, in terms of, how do you approach? So that's one, I think, which I wanted to add. And I think Mitchell made a very good point that while there is massive shift in terms of channels, in terms of, the way content is being consumed today, etc. But the core, at least the good part is the consumer motivation isn't changing.
Yeah.
Right. We are still looking for those core intrinsic things, the value of getting accepted, looking good, etc., etc. So those things are not getting changed.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty as a marketer. If you are hooked to that, and those core basic instincts are not changing, then you can easily continue to build on top of it.
So I think we all agree that I think there are some changes which are going to be permanent and there are going to be some which are just trends and temporary, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's an interesting point, Chirag, you made about budgets. And I think no better than Bharat to tell us what's the POV on digital budgets. Is this again a temporary phenomena or is it going to stay? Are brands spending a lot more on digital?
So I think there are quite of industry reports which got released in India, and if I just see from a global lens also, WARC released the last quarter data at a global level. So globally, I think the correlation is quite evident that the consumer engagement is happening on digital platforms, social commerce, video streaming, gaming, and this is where the global spends are happening. Most of the markets have already seen decline on the mainline budgets, whether it's cinema, out of home, due to obvious reasons. But some of these behaviors, what the fellow panelists mentioned a few minutes back, are, I would say, going to stay here because there is a new economies which is being built over the last 2 years, whether it's the creator economy, which is helping brands to build the brand digital first with the help of content approach. There is the social commerce channel, which actually accelerated the e-commerce strategy and helping both consumer navigate the complex ecosystem, and the journey is getting simplified. And then I think the disruption which some of the verticals saw because of this pandemic, whether it's retail or auto category, where they were forced to actually digitalize, whether it's the dealership or a retail trade trying to identify how to connect with the consumer in the pandemic world. So some of these behavior actually have seen a quite significant growth when it is investment. And most of the reports, I think, is clearly talking about digital becoming the number one medium. Advanced markets, we already see how most of the digital devices, whether it's connected TV, digital out of home, audio, they bring a larger share from an economy point of view. But I think from a fact that India as a market, we are now seeing the burst happening from a linear TV towards CTV as a narrative. But if we go with the current stats itself, without CTV becoming a larger share of the spend, digital as a channel has already surpassed the linear TV spends because of the multiple reasons what we just spoke about. So spend's going to continue to increase. Also, we need to see that over the last 2 years in this pandemic, there is again a larger boost of digital spends coming from D2C funded by the VCs. So all these new age brands, or even if you talk about the entirely new category which was being built on digital, which is the crypto economy. Most of these crypto exchanges are also fueling the digital spends right now in our market. And we will continue to see the big ticket event sponsorships, what we call in India, would majorly be dominated by these digital first D2C brands. So definitely the spends have increased significantly. The proportion is going to stay here because the medium has already proven the ROI in some or other format, whether it's through end-to-end attribution models, whether it's direct marketing concept. And
somewhere down the line, the promise what digital gave, which is the addressable audience, is I think the flavor of what the marketers are looking forward from linear TV and other mediums as well, how they can identify an audience which is more addressable, more measurable, irrespective whether they are putting their spends on mainline or offline.
I think the time spent has also increased, right? So the audience has also increased, the time spent on the digital media has increased. So in general, you have more audience to target, right? And in fact, I remember when the pandemic just started, that time the kind of CPM rates you were getting on, let's say, Google or Facebook were highly cheap, right? So even it was like 10% of what you were actually getting in a normal competitive times. Obviously, that is not true today, but there was a time when a lot of companies pulled off their budgets. They were not really spending a lot. And if you are the one who was spending that time, I think it's a great opportunity. Yeah.
I think, organic is a great buzzword, but you really need to get a bang for your buck, and that's only that much that an organic traction can give you. So investments will increase for sure, because we all know there's a cognitive ad block in the minds of our customers, right? So how do we break that? How do we channelize our monies into the right direction? We need to be very clear in setting our objectives, right? What are we targeting? What are we gunning for? Is it reach? Is it lead? Is it sales? Or is just the awareness game that we are playing? And once we've identified our objectives, and if you run behind your objectives that are identified, I think if you put your money in the right place, you're really going to reap the benefits. So I completely agree with Bharat that spends are going to increase. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah. So that I think digital also suffers from over tracking, and everything is really measured, right? And
yes.
so I think everything is going to tie back into ROI, right? And this question is incomplete without understanding how are we going to navigate in a cookieless world where it's going to become increasingly difficult to track and target the consumer, right? And then are we going to probably hold back and say, hey, what digital promise it's not delivering, and it's better to stay on to the mediums that we know.
So maybe I can go first. I think measurement is a big challenge in the current space also. And as we progress into a more privacy-first, cookie-less world with more identity depreciation happening, which is, I think, a good sign, to be very honest, because the misuse of cookie is been happening over the last 2 decades, and that small text file sitting in our systems, which is making most of the decisioning in terms of the ad targeting and measuring the ROI, was actually being misused by a lot of organizations in terms of not getting a proper consent, or how the daisy chain of data was being evolved from one player to another player. So I think it's a good sign that based on the public concern, the government regulations, and some of the initiatives which the big giants are bringing to safeguard their walls and making it more thicker, more taller for data to be protected securely, is a good initiative. On the measurement side, I think how we see solutions coming up. So there is one of the quite commonly used solution which we all called as clean rooms. So most of these big giants are offering data clean rooms where we can actually do a lot of audience modeling to understand how the consumer engaged with the brand when they were exposed. We can actually do a lot of customer matching to understand people who have recently purchased the product. What was the frequency exposure? What's an optimal reach frequency that we need to manage on a platform A versus platform B? So this is one of the use cases which is happening right now at an aggregated level, not at one-to-one measurement level, which is the whole science behind moving into a privacy-first world. So that's one of the solution. The other side, what we are seeing is that as a brand more focused on first-party data, and this first-party data which has been stressed enough as the gold mine for each of the brand identity, because if you are not going to focus on your first-party data, someone else going to steal that away. So as brands continue to focus more on first-party data, I think the measurement journey will start from their proprietary or in-house CDPs, CRMs, to understand consumer better from a lens, not just how to segment the consumer in terms of what messaging they are doing, but also to understand the exposure, what is being done, the journey, what is being tracked, and how it has impacted in terms of their ROI. So clearly right now, the market is divided into 2 parts. One is more of audience modeling approach, which is predictive side of marketing. using clean rooms, using CDPs. The other side is definitely how we continue to build and harness the existing first party and build some sort of attribution models which give us a clear indication whether the spends that we are putting on digital on the channel is the right way or not.
So in terms of first party data, I don't get a sense that brands are doing enough to build the first party data. I think e-commerce brands, D2C brands are already, by the nature of the business, they already have a lot of robust first party data. But what about, brands who are not actively offering the e-commerce channel? What about them? Is there any other approach to build that first party data? Any of you would want to take this up?
I would just first add that I think it's become imperative that one has to have the digital channel, right? I have seen the narrative change from not having one to what is the ROI for this, how does the P&L fit, to now at least what Bharat is saying, that it has become a strategically important angle. And as we move or as we deepen this trend of moving towards a cookieless world, or where first party data has become even more important, you will see that. And what I think Bharat was saying, that doesn't this further takes the trend of direct to consumer in terms of the investment which the sector has got even further, right? Wherein the first party gets important. Now you can use that data. So at least the way I am seeing is further investments into CRM, into some of those tools to be used so that you can start to enhance this data into multiple your channels. At least that's how I am looking at it.
No, so that's also
Sorry, Chetan, just to answer, you asked about what are the frameworks when it comes to first party, because everyone is just talking that there is enough focus, but how to start that journey, right? So if we see, there are frameworks which actually tells you at which stage your organization is right now. Are you in the nascent stage where you're still exploring what all data sources you have? As a brand, do you have offline data source which you want to convert into an online identifier, or your brand already is sitting on a lot of online identifier, but you're not able to bring it back to your old school CRM. So that's how first step is to identify which stage your organization is, so that you get the right key stakeholders, both from the tech side as well as from the marketing leadership side. Second is you need to identify which vertical a brand fall in, because every vertical has a different use case when it comes to the value exchange. The whole idea behind first party is that customers are looking to do some value exchange in doing a barter. When you're asking a customer to give a first party data, whether it's the PII information, email, phone, or further details about marital status or what the brand is looking, if the value exchange is there, example in CPG category, most of our brands, we are now migrating them into a digital first sampling approach. So old school traditional sampling, any which ways is a big no because of the measurement challenges and what happened in the pandemic, because of the distribution concerns. So digital first sampling is one way where CPG can actually start doing digital first sampling, partner with a logistics partner who actually helps do end-to-end mile management of warehousing, delivery, product feedbacks, everything. And that's how you start generating your first party. In other categories like auto, there is the loyalty programs which is coming up. So because some of the brands didn't started the journey earlier when it comes to first party building, and they already have a large customer base who own that OEM. So they're bringing them back into a loyalty program. If you own this vehicle, if you own this brand, we are building a loyalty program for you, a community where you can engage, you can participate, some sort of a gamification contest. So this is where your existing customers also come back into a loyalty program and start sharing the first party data at the regular intervals. So multiple frameworks are available, depend on what stage the brand in and which category you fit in. That's how you can identify the right value exchange. Without value exchange, I think it will not be in the benefit of the customer to share first party.
I think one of the things which we have actually noticed and have actually moved in that direction is, so earlier when you used to think about marketing, or maybe digital marketing for that matter, it used to be thought like Chirag was mentioning, it's just an arm for a marketing team, right? So traditional marketers would assume that digital is just one another channel, right? And it's not but What we have felt is it requires a whole lot of different skill set and basically the different kind of team you need, right? So when you are processing such huge amount of data, so you need to actually think about digital marketing more like a product and a tech function, plus obviously the marketing side of it, where you understand consumers, what they want, how do you need to serve them, what all platforms you will find them on, that still stays there. But the understanding from how these data exchanges will happen, how you send data to share data across platforms in a near real-time scenario, right? It requires more like a product and a product manager kind of thought process, right? Or somewhat of technical expertise to basically handle this. So I think that kind of change also people should envision in their teams, rather than because for someone who is just a marketing guy, right, it becomes generally somewhat difficult if you don't have that kind of background. So I think that's also will need to be taken into consideration.
Actually, that's a very good point that you made. Saying that brands need to start looking at digital as a separate product, function, and you need specialized team.
Yeah.
That brings us to two questions: saying, is there enough talent out there? Is talent an issue to build a team like that? And two, are marketers has a shift of lens happened, right? I mean, marketing is still looked upon as an investment function. It's a function which is not looked upon as an investment, as a cost center, right? So, so are you seeing brands adapting to this in India? In the near term, do you think a large consumer brand is willing to build a team which is like a product team, like you mentioned, or are we a long way in this journey?
So actually that depends upon how digital marketing teams actually project themselves inside the organization, right? Whether they are seen as a cost center like the traditional marketing team, or they are seen like more like an ROI driver, right? In the previous session, I think we were talking about ROI, right? So I think what separates an average digital marketer from an expert digital marketer is basically not just the understanding about digital marketing, but how well you understand technology, one, and the second one is how well you understand the company's business, right? A lot of digital marketers I meet, they're great at the digital marketing metrics, jargons, right? But they're not very thorough with what exactly the business their company does, right? How do they really make money? So till the time you don't get to that stage, you will be a average digital marketer, I would say, right? Till the time you get an understanding how your marketing is actually helping the company grow, right? What metrics were you chasing? Those metrics cannot be just reach, frequency, or any other marketing related metric. It has to be a business related metric. Once you, with your marketing investment, start to move the business metrics, obviously the confidence across the organization grows immensely, right? The problem has been in the past is marketing teams generally don't own the business metrics, right? So if you own the business metric, if you show the results, then it is no longer a cost center, right? You say I invested 5 crores, I got business worth of 7 crores, then obviously everyone will be like, yeah, spend 10 crores, why not 10 crores, right? So I think if you tend to get that kind of ROI setting inside the organization, I think the budgets are infinite.
I just want to add to what Ashish has just said. I do agree with Ashish that, we need to define the ROI and you need to have stronger matrices. But a slight different approach, right? So it's not always sales driven, right? Digital plays a very important role in reputation building, right? So building a safety net for yourself, and no amount of spends could build a reputation of an organization. So it's your year for a long time. You can't just measure everything in terms of your sales garnered, and we are all grappling with the same thing, whether it is communication or PR trying to define whether what is the ROI of that news article that you got in the newspaper, or it's a marketer trying to justify that hoarding on the Bandra ceiling, right? So there is a certain amount of reputation building that you do. Like at Godrej, we have our own media platforms. We have set up an own media platform for our lifestyle brands called L'Affaire. Now, when we have all the reason why we set up this platform was very simple: to create content for brands, to have a common platform where all lifestyle brands celebrate together. It's a, non-competing brands can come and celebrate lifestyle, and to get the community together, right? Now, if you ask me if L'Affaire is giving you that amount of sales, may or may not, I won't be able to justify that. But has L'Affaire increased the reputation of the in terms of showcasing the lifestyle brands within Godrej? Yes, because there was a time where we were known to be a brand that sold locks and cupboards, to a time that consumer knows that we have fashion hair colors and we are catering to every lifestyle brand, right? So that shift, no amount of spends can give you. So there's a lot that you could do in terms of reputation building. And clearly, there are organizations who are seeing digital as a very important vertical. There are teams being set up within organizations. We have a digital spoke within all our brands who are only thinking digital, and there's no rocket science, right? So you pick up, everyone have their social media handles. What's working for them on their social media handles will be exactly what works for them for their brands, right? So we saw there was a 10% increase in how to use learning videos during the lockdown. Everyone wanted to know how to cook, how to color, and brands immediately latched onto that, and they started creating how to hair color videos, how to prepare this chicken with real Godrej, real good chicken videos, and it worked well for us, right? So I see that there is no dearth of talent. There are a lot of youngsters who are thinking digital, and see, digital natives, and especially the younger generation, they are digital natives. They think in that direction. Yeah. They know what's going to work, what's not going to work. So I see a lot of teams going to give a lot of focus to digital, more than a cost center. Look at a digital resource as a part of the marketing team.
Got it. I would maybe clarify myself a little bit. So when I said ROI, I mean one is performance ROI, right? When you run performance marketing, that is purely sales-ish, I would say, right?
Yeah.
But for other campaigns also, right? One should, in fact, before the start of a campaign, should be able to define what metric should say this is a success or this is a failure, right? We can't be running something just for the sake of it, right? So even in the case when you created content, we will have, I'm sure you would also have things like how we will define the success of this activity, let's say 3 months down the line. Some activities give you instant gratification in terms of metrics moving. Some are a longer term thing where you'll have to invest, let's say, for 1 year, right? So things like SEO, content marketing, they take a larger amount of time, right? And resources. But you'll have to have that conviction so that a year down the line or 6 months down the line, you evaluate that and say that whether this was a success, not success, super successful or average activity. I think that kind of understanding is really helpful.
Yeah. True.
I think just to add to, I think the first part of your question was that how is the tech, or I think Ashish mentioned that the digital is going to become even more, adaptive with new talent required and might need to, take some form of a product or a digital product kind of a lens. I think the way at least I am seeing the space evolve is that, you will see a lot many tools emerge which will develop for this talent and, cover up for the talent gap and become digital first products or enablement products, right, which we term as enablement. Both from marketing sides, like globally, we have seen, Klaviyo do it, Attentive do it. Similarly, I'm starting to see a lot of companies emerge in India. On the e-commerce enablement space, we do some amount of jobs. There are many companies which are trying to improve the funnel, right? Yeah. And I typically, what Ashish was saying, I typically divide the CAC into two parts. One is, you get me lower CPC. The second is, can you convert better, right? You will see companies emerge in both, trying to solve via tech products, solve both parts of the problem in different ways.
Right. So, Chirag, that brings us to the next question: is there, in terms of building the technologies, the MarTech stack, right, which has been the chatter for a while, right? But has that, again, are you seeing acceleration of that? Are brands out there building, are now seriously building their whole marketing stack? Are they investing in various tools like the ones that you mentioned in terms of improving their CAC or retargeting or managing their data better? Or are we still are we seeing that this has happened in bursts, but it's not a very planned and a sustained approach?
I don't know whether I am the right person for this, but at least let me take a shot at it. At least I am seeing this emerge in Western countries in a more methodological manner. India still seems to be, catching up in terms of adopting to different tools, etc., etc. But I think why I see this as a sustained move is just because the amount of investment which has gone into some of these digital mediums will, of course, warrant newer development of such tools which will make it efficient. And you will see better ROI in adoption of these tools. So that's how I look at it. At the moment, at least, the brands which we work with and, what I have seen, it has been sporadic. Those investments haven't been methodological that, I need to invest in, let's say, a state-of-the-art analytics tool, state-of-the-art CRM tool. And it's basic, for me to operate. Still, people are testing, what is going to be is measurement really required? Or what will this lead to? Some of those things at least are still, I would say, early shoots are visible.
So I think, Chetan, on my side, from an agency point of view, the investment is already happening because we have a separate vertical and a separate division with a name called Adlift, which works most on the MarTech deployment tools, technology, dashboarding. And I think if you just take a step back, while we are referring to pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. Pre-pandemic, I think the old truth was marketing begins knowing your customer. And the new truth now, if you talk to anyone, is marketing begins if you know your customer segment. So if you want to know about which segment your customer fall in, you need a tech stack, whether it's a basic CDP or a DMP. So most of the investments, what we are seeing right now, global brands definitely investing into the blue chip CDPs like Salesforce, Telium. That's one of the economy which is already happening. But if I talk about India as a market as well, earlier when we used to have an engagement with brand that, hey, we need a single view of customer to help you connect what you're buying, how your Google Analytics is responding, how the footfalls are happening in offline. So this is one dashboard. These are some API connectors. This is the cost. Most of the brands used to like the concept, and the ask was, can you build this out for free? Because we are your agency partner. This should come as a package and all that. And we all knew the reality that most of these MarTech investments have a monthly cost attached to it. But now I think the conversations have changed. Most of the brands with whom we are engaging, when we talk about that this tool will add these types of ROI, they're happy to pay for the tool. They're able to see what that ROI the tool brings in the first 3 months, first 6 months, 9 months. And while we were all discussing, I was able to see some of your backgrounds which has the Pixis logo. So we are also using Pixis, which is our homegrown AI tool. And again, this is one of the example where the basic AI tool, if you're deploying on Google Ads or Facebook, is able to bring you better efficiency, better ROI on your lower funnel. So if a tool is able to decrease your cost per lead, sales, conversions by 10 to 15%, I think it's a good example how a brand can start with a small initiative just by deploying a targeting, a governance, or a creative AI tool, and then maybe understanding how much more the investment they need to continue to get a better ROI. So it's already happening.
Right. I agree with you, Bharat. We are also seeing a lot of shift in brands wanting to adapt technology and looking to understand the consumer a lot better. But that also brings us to the communication, right? I think there was a shift in the way brands communicated during this whole period. I think everybody took a more. I think it was more focused on being empathetic to the customer and communicating, which has certain value. And I think digital there played a lot more role because there were a lot of long format content that you could create, or like as Michelle mentioned, one example of saying how to make chicken, videos, learning videos which brands created with the whole sole purpose of adding value to consumers' life. Now, this shift in this communication, purpose-driven communication, is this here to stay, or we're seeing this as a trend? What's the communication shift that you guys are seeing, in the post-pandemic world?
So I'll take this. Purpose-driven communication was a good thing that we learned during the lockdown, but it has its own pros and cons, right? So I would change this to authentic communications, and I would like to say it's not about being empathetic, but sharing the real story. And we have burnt our fingers, right? So our intent was very right. When the pandemic hit us, we launched a hand washing anthem for our hand washing brand, and we had kids go and teach how to wash your hands and stay safe, stay protected. And then you had a nice little video that your creative agency had delivered with kids running outdoor, playing and celebrating and singing this song. We had to pull it down because it's a nice intent, but when we are facing these challenges, and especially when kids are locked indoor, you're having these kids running about without masks and singing this song, may not be the right time to deliver this message, right? So we went and distributed hand washes and hand sanitizers. We were seen opportunists, so it's about being empathetic, saying the right thing, but marketers need to understand their ABC of communication, right? You need to be authentic, and your brand needs to be believable. You just can't do it for the sake of doing it because it's the time to do it. But when you're authentic, you're believable, then it's going to connect with the right audience as well. And then you need to have that consistency, right? I have always spoken about it, and hence I'm talking about it. It makes sense. At Godrej, we always put people and planet alongside profit, right? So now if I go and say I am talking about sustainable, yes, I have the mangroves out here and I'm supporting the mangroves for so many years, and yes, we have sustainable brands to back it. But tomorrow you start talking about sustainability and your entire brand portfolio is not sustainable, there is a serious issue. So yes, purpose driven is important, and communication during these times had changed. But we need to be very, very careful of greenwashing, right? So it can face a lot of backlash.
Agreed. I think we saw a lot of those examples, like you mentioned, saying there is supposed to be social distancing and you're not showing that in your ad.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's there to stay. But I think what we are now communicating is with a very well-aware customer who's has a very strong voice, and I think digital is also giving that platform to have that two-way communication, right? So I think brands would have to going ahead invest a lot more in managing the reputation, as we say, right? And I think that probably is here to stay. But I think also the whole digital landscape is also changing, right? And I think the timing is just it's just coinciding with we coming out of the pandemic and the whole metaverse, which is out there, right? So what is your POV on all of this? And I'd like to hear from all of you. What do you think about how our brands navigate metaverse? We're also seeing so much chatter on NFTs now. Again, our brand's going to be able to leverage NFTs, or it's just right now a new shiny toy which everybody's latching on, but at some point it is going to lose its sheen?
I think it's a marketeer's paradise. I really feel that it's here to stay. We are all going to learn, for sure. We're going to learn. It's a great opportunity for us. It's going to be the next gen internet for us. And there was a time where we all realized that, virtually, we never ever thought that we could have this virtual panel discussion. Right? So we got used to it. So it will take time. But I think marketers should be all geared to welcome metaverse with open arms and start thinking right now, because if you don't do it now, then you're not going to do it, right? So I think it's really going to be, we really need to look forward to it.
Yeah, I think it's very, very early time right now. We can't really predict what will happen, but yeah, like you said, we should be open to it as a concept, and then see how it pans out, really, right?
So at this stage, like most of you, the fellow panelists mentioned, I think it's quite early. Right now, it's more in the imagination stage, which we all brand managers love to imagine how we fit our brand into this metaverse. So gaming as one of the concepts, we are already seeing a lot of use cases coming out. E-commerce also putting out a phygital narrative where you shop in the metaverse, get the physical product out in the real world, and then some of the brands started the narrative shop in metaverse for metaverse. No actual product free. The product will be only used in the metaverse games. But overall, I think the concept what we see is metaverse is going to be more, I would say, powerful than anything else when it comes to Web 3.0.
Yeah.
And we would definitely see it growing not just around one company as a central organization taking an advantage to it, but the whole digital community and economy, especially the creator economy, which has already started building virtual worlds, designing cities for us in the metaverse, would be, I would say, the early adopters and the brands who have already started navigating, doing at least a little bit A/B testing to understand what role their brand can play, whether the brand should be part of creator economy or an experience economy or a solution economy, would be the winner of this metaverse race.
In fact, not even today, right? If you even look back, let's say 10, 12 years, right? Games, there were popular games by Zynga, like Farmville, some of the other games. I haven't played them, but yeah, I know people used to like spend their real money to buy stuff inside the games, right? And there are even followers to that even today, right? They will spend their real money to get some virtual gifts inside the games, right? So inside the games, it's already happening. But I generally find it a little bit. I'm actually not able to connect to that piece. Even buying something in the metaverse and getting a physical product delivered to you, that's still consumable for me. But buying a virtual thing inside a virtual world and then consuming it there, I think we are just extrapolating it too much. I don't know whether people really want to do that, but I fail to understand the real, what pleasure would somebody derive, like let's say buying virtual things from your real money, right? And generally these are younger people, right? You will find 18, 20-year-olds or 15-year-olds spending money to get some virtual stuff inside the games.
Yeah. So I think it adds there are people who are spending virtual money, real money to buy virtual merchandise, right? So it is, it's a fad. I feel it's a brag value.
It's a brag value. It has brag value.
Yeah, it has a brag value, and there will be people who will be interested to do that. And you have fans, you have look at how people are crazy over Bollywood in our country, right? And if you get an avatar of your favorite Bollywood star or even a merchandise, there will be people who will go bonkers to buy it. So I see that there is an opportunity, and like you said, gaming is one platform, but I think it will go beyond gaming.
Yeah, it will go because I think
go beyond gaming.
People have a lot of time, a lot of internet, money, so they will spend.
Yeah.
No, I think talking about gaming, I think gaming was one area which was completely saw acceleration of growth right during the pandemic. I think casual gaming became really, really huge.
Yeah.
I think it saw a lot of new users jumping onto games, right? So do you see a trend that brands will now get serious about creating their own IPs, gaming IPs, in that sense, to ride this wave? Because gaming is not slowing down at all, and I think metaverse is just is going to give it impetus, right? And the growth is going to continue. What we're also seeing is that a lot of your smart television and a lot of your connected devices allow you to also game on a larger screen and use your mobile device as a second screen of sorts. So it's a great opportunity for brands, but do you see brands leveraging it, or they are happy to just be passive, maybe sponsors or passive participants rather than creating IPs?
I think it's a great opportunity. We had launched something called as Godrej Go, I think it was too early to launch that. Internet was a challenge, and that time I still remember, I had spoken to people who used to play Godrej Gogio 20 hours a day.
20 hours?
20 hours a day. So there is a brand opportunity for sure. I don't see a lot of brands integrating themselves as of now. So maybe that's a huge space to be in, because you have a lot of these games that are doing a lot of role playing, right? So I see my daughter playing a lot of games, and she buys outfits and we are paying for that. So we know what a brag value it is and what it is for that youngster. But I also see that there is a lot of opportunities for brand to integrate themselves. But the clutter is so much that there are so many games available right now. So I don't know. I think in days to come, there will be brands that will integrate themselves very subtly and smartly in games as well. No one wants to play a Godrej game. No one wants to play a Reliance game. You can't just take the brand out there and put it. But there are smarter ways of doing that. And once I think brands crack that, I think it'll be really great.
I've seen a lot of, let's say, e-commerce companies integrating games inside their journeys, right? So inside their app, you play a game, you win something, and then you encash that to a coupon or something, right? So not necessarily very, very heavy IPs being developed by them, but like a very, very lightweight games, like a copter where you traverse and then you get something after that, right? So those kind of games we have seen like inside some of the e-commerce apps, right? They are trying to engage people and then giving something to them after they complete a certain stage, right? And then that is being used onto the platform. So I think people will try multiple versions. Let's see what actually the users get hooked on to.
Yeah.
Completely agree with both. I think and Ashish, it's more casual gaming when it comes to brand investing and creating a gamified version. Mostly it's campaign related, I would say. So it's a little bit siloed approach, not a always on strategy. But I think if we just see on the other side, the overall gaming community, what we call, so on our side we call them unreachables, because if you just do a little bit more research, in Asia Pacific there are now 1.6 billion gamers. India, it's 300 million plus gamers. India definitely, these are the current stats of the people who are actually spending quite significant gaming, and you cannot reach out to them on a CTV or a audio or a YouTube or a Facebook platform. So they are unreachables. India as a market is 300 million plus gamers, but predominantly mobile as a device which is being used, not the gaming consoles and the CTV. The shift will happen in India as well, how we've seen in other economies. So from a strategy point of view, it's already, I would say, a high time where brands should think about gaming or a gamer strategy separately, not just thinking this as another line item in the media plan for one of the campaign because they feel they want to target a young demographic. If you do more deeper research, in India, most of the time on Candy Crush is being spent by 25 to 40 females, housewives, during the afternoon. So on Candy Crush, the peak time is the afternoon, noon time, which also showcase that it's not just the younger demographic. There is a wider demographic who is spending a lot more time in gaming. So definitely brands should start investing more when it comes to gaming as an overall concept, whether they feel that they want to integrate their brand by creating a game or participating in a esports tournament or in-game advertising. There are multiple opportunities based on which category you fall in and what type of segment that you're looking.
Agreed.
Awesome. So I think this brings us to our last question and a last parting shot from all of you. What changes you would like to see in digital marketing in the post-pandemic world? Any of you can go first.
I think pre-pandemic, brands used to compete with their competitor, which still continue to exist. But I think post-pandemic, there is a new competition which has arisen, which is about you have to compete with your last best experience that you deliver to that customer. So customers are now looking a better experience every time they shop with you, they engage with you. So you need to actually deliver better than the previous experience what you built for them, whether it's an offline environment or a digital environment. So I would just leave on that note.
I think you need to have a stronger measurement matrix for sure. We need to really conquer micro markets, and we have not done that enough. And how we go about doing that, we really need to fasten our seatbelts for metaverse and see what's in store for us. There's enough and more content available out there. I would really think that we should figure out as marketeers, how can we refurbish, repackage our existing content in a smarter way and share it with our consumers. We should start small, but look out for scale, right? So it's, when you are marketing, it's not about coming there big bang and say, hey, we are here. Take baby steps, but your vision should be, you should definitely have the bigger picture in mind. And if you don't execute fast and adapt with time, I think we'll be redundant. So it's high time that we really need to be agile enough, be flexible enough, execute fast, and you're set for success for sure.
Ashish, any thoughts?
I generally think of it more like a test and learn kind of approach, right? So you keep testing things, you keep learning from those experiments, right? And then iterate your way forward, right? So I think that is something which I feel in the digital world works very well, right? Because testing is easier. Testing gives you confidence on numbers, right? Because you know what works and by how much, right? So I think for me, it is more around keep testing new things, and like Michelle also said, execute it faster, right? Otherwise, so do a lot of tests very frequently, and then learn from them, and then incorporate that into your product, right? So I think that's something. So like, let's say metaverse, right? You'll have to test it, right, with a small use case, and then see if that works for your consumer base or not right now. So I think that constant testing and learning kind of thing helps a lot with the digital platforms in general.
Agreed. I think to summarize, I think what we need is, I think, agility, customer experience, and constant iteration. And I think it's a ever-evolving medium. So thank you very much, all of you. It was great chatting with you all, and some really insightful thoughts.
Thank you, Chetan.
Thank you very much.
I'm still worried about those kids who were playing 20 hours of gaming.
Ashish, I was equally surprised. Thank you, guys. Thanks for all the values. Thank you.
Thank you.